Hey everybody, this is Cody 922 here. Welcome to Cody Talks Fanfiction episode number 17. For two things that I do want to say. The first off, this is probably a long anticipated episode for me to do. This is going to be the Bumblebee episode, where I'll be talking about stories focused on Bumblebee. The other thing that I want to say, and this very directly pertains to this episode, one of these stories that I was going to talk about must have been deleted. I know for a fact that I followed it, and I looked through my followed list a bunch, but I couldn't find it. And I honestly wouldn't be able to tell you the title of it. I'm not going to say that it was a bad story. It was not a bad story. There was going to be a lot of critical things to say about it because it wasn't overly memorable, honestly, but it's not there. I looked through it, honestly, it's not there. I recognize most of the stories in my followed list. So that does make me sad that it was deleted. I do not agree with authors deleting any stories of theirs. Beyond the point of it being like one chapter or something, or maybe even a one-shot that you just don't like and you want to take it down to fix it, but this story's gone. Like, in all honesty, it's gone. I believe that my follows list was at like 90-something before, and it's been dropped down to 91, I believe. I am saying I believe. So, yeah, that's sad. It's really sad for me that it got deleted, and unfortunately, I don't have something to take its place. I binge read specifically Bumblebee stories for this episode, so I don't have anything to take its place. So enjoy me talking about 2 stories instead of 3 this week. Once again, I apologize for that. And I apologize to the author as well, because 92, my bad. But I mean, I just can't do anything about it, and I wanted to give some critical feedback, but I can't. So, oh well. Moving on, though. However, we will be moving on. And the very first story that I'm going to be talking about is honestly one of my favorite. Not one of my favorite stories, but it's a story that I really enjoy because it really helps out in an argument that I like to make. And this is going to be Prisoners Together by merikflame. Prisoners Together. Oh wait, hang on, my bad. Blake has done something terrible, and she feels her life is over as she heads to the worst prison camp in the world. That is, until she meets a certain blonde girl. AU. So yeah, Prisoners Together. That honestly, that summarizes it. Blake, I believe she kills a man. Mama just killed a man. And and so as a consequence towards it, she gets sent to a prison camp. And it's very... This story is short. It's however many chapters. It is 6 chapters long, only 6,650 words long. Most people would take a look at that and scoff, especially with the way that the plot has progressed, and scoff and think that this is too short. But one of my favorite things to make is you can fit. Some people can do what would take some authors 500 words or what some authors would take 5,000 words and do it in 500 to 1,000 words. Some authors can do that. Those would be the rare few, like momoxtoshiro or Hanasaku-Shijin, which is the same person, but I just fell into a habit. And so, but this is not. I will say this is not one of those instances. But it is proof that honestly, this was one of the better Bumblebee stories that I have read, and I've read a couple. Full-length Bumblebee fics. This is one of the better full-length Bumblebee fics that I have read, because despite the fact that it is only 6,650 words, it still has a good emotion. It still has a good atmosphere to it, and that's going to be kind of the starting points here. It is good. It does have a very good atmosphere. It has a very brutal. It has a surprisingly. I should say it has a surprisingly good atmosphere for how short it is. It only took me like 20 or so minutes to read the entire thing, and that was with a couple of distractions. So, and it's not a long read. It's not a long commitment of time, but it's absolutely worth it, I think. In this particular fic, you have just a great atmosphere that's created. It's wonderful to kind of go into and feel as though the atmosphere is very believable, and I really, really appreciate it when authors can do that, and I really appreciate it when they can do it in the fewest amount of words necessary. And the atmosphere is better on this than a lot of the other, than a fair portion of the other 90, formerly 93, now 92 stories on my followed list. And it was really, really, really well done. Yeah, I will say, For a prison area, it is. It's pretty high on my list of prisons that I've read in fan fiction. Unfortunately, it's not a long list, but it is higher up there. And I think that if you're looking for the kind of like this grittier prison atmosphere, give that story a read. The other thing that I do want to address about this that I brought up was emotions. You have 6,650 words to fill in as much emotion, to make us feel as many emotions as possible. While this seems like an impossible task, it's absolutely not, and merikflame does prove that it is not. He does a very good job with fitting in a lot of emotions into those 6,650 words to make you kind of feel these sudden changes in how a character thinks and reacts based purely, or how Blake and Yang think and react based purely around who they're with, the type of environment that they're in. And it's really, really well done. Cons to this story, though, one of the cons to it is, unfortunately, its length. While it does do, it's less of a commitment of time and a better spent commitment of your time than, admittedly, some other Bumblebee fanfics out there, of which I will obviously not be going into. But at the same time, it still is underdeveloped. merikflame cannot get away with things quite like Hanasaku-Shijin can. And unfortunately, he cannot write 6,650 words and have everything be developed to their absolute max. So that's unfortunate, and it's not as well done as it could be. I think that this story, admittedly, it should be around 10,000 words. I think if you squeeze in another 4K or so words, taking the time to develop emotions really are the main thing underdeveloped. The atmosphere is great. I think that the atmosphere doesn't need to be focused on too much more than it already is. A little bit more would be helpful, but not like, oh my god, there's so much missing here. And I really do believe that it could benefit from maybe another 4,000 words. I think, roughly 4,000 words to properly develop everything. Just looking at how merikflame is as a writer. I have read another Bumblebee story actually by merikflame. I did not want to do it this episode though, due to the fact that I did not want to do two stories by the same author in one episode. And so it's also not the one that I read before. I do want to be clear about that. But it's just a little bit after reading that, it's kind of like, okay, has a tendency to rush through things. I guess is like one of the bigger points there is that a lot of it could be fixed if it wasn't quite so rushed. There is an acceleration of the plot a little bit. I have talked with him and he said that angst is a little bit harder for him to do. And I think that he absolutely does need to, he needs to slow down. I think that at the end of the day, this is an issue that a fair amount of fanfiction authors do struggle with. Slow the hell down, because not every despite the fact that your brain is working at that pace, you need to make sure that everybody understands all the little tidbits in between. It's a common error, and I think that honestly, that's really the one big thing that he does need to work on. I don't want to, I'm not going to go into quite so many nitpicky things. I'm just going to say slow down. I do like the characterization though. In this one, I did not mention it before. I like the twisted personalities of this one, and by twisted I mean changed. I don't mean that they're sick, sick and twisted, but I like the change in personalities on them. It's very, very wonderful. It's refreshing, and I do believe that this is one of the better Bumblebee fics out there. A full length Bumblebee fics. If you want. No lies, if you want to, get some other Bumblebee fics, I do highly recommend Hanasaku-Shijin for damn near everything. And I gotta say, but this is one of the better full-length, quote-unquote, Bumblebee fics that there is. A worthwhile read. And I think that everybody here should go check it out. It's not my recommendation of the video. That goes to the only other story in this fucking video. But very good job. I would say 8. I would give it a solid 8. No. 8.5 is where I'd put it. 8.5. Very, very solid story, and I think that whenever the next update does come, I will be happily anticipating it. Next story that I'm going to be talking about, moving on though, is one more thing before I move on. I would appreciate a change in cover art. I do like what the cover is, but it doesn't really fit with the theme of the story. Just saying. Okay. However, moving on. to the next story on Those of Crimson and Gold by Rise from Shadows. I'm joking, and I wish I wasn't, because I still do love that story. I'm kind of sad that I've already covered it, but I'm sorry. Sorry, Rise, but it's not going to get covered again. You're still an awesome person, though. And also, just a silent plug. Stay tuned for Witch's Apprentice, her AU that's coming up that I'm very fucking excited about. So now that I found a way to effectively fill some pieces of this episode that are very, very clearly missing, a story that I've already said will be on this episode. This is going to be... Oh, what's this? Interesting. This is going to be Gold by Hanasaku-Shijin / momoxtoshiro.
A cat, a coincidence, and a childhood friendship brought them together. But just because people come together does not necessarily mean they will stay that way. For people are fickle, fragile, and foolishly selfless in terms of love.
May I just say that description is one of the better descriptions that I have read, and I'm so happy. All right, so basic plot line behind this is that Blake and Ruby are sisters, and I believe that they are going to school one day, and they spot Blake, who's going to another school, petting a cat, and the cat runs out into traffic. This first part takes place very, very early on. Cat goes out in traffic, and Yang stops Blake from running out after the cat, because a car would have hit Blake. It doesn't hit the cat, though. The cat does live. Shroud, I believe. Yeah, Shroud. Interesting. And so then they meet up with Weiss, who is Blake's adoptive sister, and the group meets, and they all get along quite well with each other. And Blake and Weiss are adoptive sisters, I should say that. And then they start to interact with each other, and over the years, kind of goes on. It is a realism AU, and I think that anybody that knows me knows that I love a well-done realism AU. And this is phenomenal. This is my second favorite story that I've ever read in terms of fan fiction. And Hanasaku-Shijin does brilliantly with this. You guys heard my rant, my very happy and pleased rant with her the author spotlight. And nothing has really changed in terms of my views of her. Couple points that I do want to talk about. I think that I've said all that I needed to in the author spotlight for line breaks, but I'm going to bring it up again. I adore her line breaks. The line breaks are great. Of course, they're really well done, and I think that the best example of the line breaks being really well done was present in Gold. In Gold, you had these line breaks that were just done so beautifully, especially in the final couple chapters. The line breaks in the final few chapters were done to absolute perfection, in my opinion. It made reading it all the better, and I absolutely adored this story. Then also the other thing that I want to bring up is atmosphere, is that I'm going to be talking about the atmosphere a lot, and this story has a very, very good atmosphere. It's light when it needs to be, and it's heavy when it needs to be. It absolutely captures the essence of being this world, being the world that it's trying to be. It captures that perfectly, of just being very real world-esque, very much so addressing some other things, especially towards the end, addressing some very big issues, which I'm not going to spoil, obviously, for just want to avoid spoiling things. And it was just, the atmosphere is just wonderful, in that you give Hanasaku-Shijin 1,000 words, she can create a really good atmosphere. You give her 48,889 words. This is the type of atmosphere that she can create, and it's to the surprise of nobody. I think that the way that the character's done was, once again, her Yang was different. I brought this up the last time. Her Yang was / is different from the other Yangs. and I would not be able to tell you how exactly, but it is, and it's never felt any more different than in Gold. And I think that this was a great use of Yang. It was really, it was just a great variation, like the same personalities that are often present, or same traits that are present a lot in Yang, and the Yangs that we will tend to see were still present in this one. It's not as though they were different or they were changed at all. But wait for the buts. It was how do I describe this? But it was changed to the point where it differed from how she would normally act with these kind of things. And it made total sense. It made complete sense to change things in the way that Hanasaku-Shijin did. And I absolutely loved reading it. It was wonderful. It was wonderful to read, and honestly, it's one of my favorite. It was one of my favorite. Once again, this is, I'd say, I shouldn't say probably is. This is definitely my favorite Bumblebee story that I've read. And one of the reasons is the Yang. The Yang is such a strong leading character in this one. And by, she is still behaves like that Yang that, we kind of, I always kick my summers off with a Yang. But at the same time, it's still different. It's still different. What she does changes enough to the point where it's believable, but it's unique. And it's probably, I hope that more people start doing Yang like Hanasaku-Shijin does. I probably won't, because I don't want to even attempt that. But her Yang is one of my favorite things. There's also another bonus. Not bonus, but another positive point to this story is the way that the conflict was done, where you didn't actually really realize that there necessarily was a conflict until later on in the story, which is a really good thing, because the conflict wasn't thrown in your face. The conflict was very subtle. There was lots of little minor conflicts that kind of arose as the way grew on, including the death of one of my favorite characters ever. Not going to say who, but rip in peace. And yeah, so I will, once again, I will not say who, but character died, and I'm very mad at Hanasaku-Shijin for killing them off. And I think that some of the last points that I really do want to specifically get into in terms of just blind praise for Gold was that this story was an emotional roller coaster. Kind of reading through it was happy, sad, happy, sad, God, why, please stop, Mrs. Please, you're hurting me badly. It was wonderful to read, and it was like towards the end there, it was just couldn't really bring myself to stop reading, and that's really good. As a fact, I marathoned this. I started reading it, and I read like the first chapter. I'm like, welp, I'm not stopping until I finish reading this. And then I didn't stop until I finished reading it. So that was fun. So that's going to be it for blind praise for this thing. There's a lot more that I actually could really talk about. Actually, yeah, hang on. Blake and Weiss, the sister relationship. I really like the way that it was done. It was a very believable sister relationship. No inclusion of fondness, so that was not an issue. I like the workaround for it, though. Just some of the ways that Blake behaved. Butchered that word. And yeah, so that's going to be the last. Obviously, RWBY and Yang. I love that sister relationship. I love the sister relationship. I'm only saying that because I know my friends right now probably going to send me enabler things. But in terms of some critical things, there's really only one that I can manage. And that was the ending to this story. When the ending happened, it was all just thrown out there. It was towards the end, it had a great build up. You hit the climax, and then it was done. And then a bunch of other stuff happened, though. It was kind of like the climax happened, but that wasn't enough. So here we're going to do this, and this. And it was all thrown at you. It was legitimately all thrown at you. You didn't really get proper time to react to anything. And I didn't enjoy it. Or I didn't enjoy it as much as the rest of the story. All the way up until climax, fine. Post-climax, still pretty good, but it was too much. It was after what it was that we just read, it was very good to have this relief moment, but it was still, it was too much. So it was a little bit too much. And that is it for negative criticism. Hanasaku-Shijin to this day continues to piss me off to review as an author, because definitely have a harder time figuring out things to say. But absolutely wonderful story. It is my recommendation of the video. Obviously, it's one of my recommendations for the series. Right now, recommendation for the series actually is White Rose Vermilion, but then immediately afterwards is Gold, because I think that it is a more than worthwhile read for absolutely everybody. And with that, this is going to unfortunately conclude this video. I will go ahead and say that Bumblebee was the thing that I covered this week, and next week, let's just say that I might be covering something a little bit similar to this. But otherwise, tune in this Friday when I will have a new episode of Freaky Friday out, and I don't have to deal with Planky McGee anymore. That's a win. And tune in next Wednesday when I will have a new episode of Cody Talks Fanfiction out. Otherwise, I will see all of you the next time. Bye.